In a quiet town, Evelyn Parker, a kind and warm-hearted woman, passed away after a lifetime of dedicating herself to helping her community and her longtime friend, Grace. Evelyn had never amassed much wealth, but everyone knew her life was filled with small, sentimental treasures. When her daughter Miranda, who rarely visited and did not share her values, returned to town to claim her mother's belongings, fate had some surprises in store. Evelyn had left behind a secret, hidden to be discovered only by someone who truly understood the value of love and care. Miranda Parker returned to the small rural town with one goal: to quickly settle the affairs of her mother's inheritance and get back to her fast-paced life in New York City. Stepping out of the rented car in front of the old wooden house, Miranda hardly recognized the place. It had been years since she last set foot there, and everything seemed smaller, faded, and worthless. Deep down, she never understood why her mother insisted on staying in that modest home, far from all the opportunities and the lifestyle Miranda had always cherished. As she crossed the overgrown garden, where weeds tangled with roses that had lost their bloom, she was surprised to see Grace, her mother's longtime neighbor. Grace was there, crouched on the ground, tending to some plants, as she always did. She looked up, and upon recognizing Miranda, she gave her a sad but warm smile. "Oh, Miranda, I'm so sorry for your loss. Evelyn was a wonderful friend, and I know how much this place meant to her." Miranda briefly thanked her, paying little attention. To her, Grace was just an eccentric, lonely old lady who lingered around her mother's house. Changing the subject as quickly as she could, Miranda headed straight for the door, her only focus being to rid herself of the place as fast as possible. Walking inside, she was enveloped by the familiar scent of the house, bringing back memories she tried to push away. Everything looked just as it always had, but to her, the walls, furniture, and small objects left behind by Evelyn seemed only dusty and outdated. To Miranda, the house and everything in it represented nothing more than a quick payday. The sooner she could sell everything, the better. Grace, however, watched Miranda with a mix of sadness and understanding. To Grace, the house was a piece of Evelyn's soul, each corner holding a memory. She knew the sentimental value of the place, something Miranda clearly did not recognize. It was obvious the daughter was more concerned with the material side of the inheritance than the emotional legacy Evelyn had left behind. As she left that day, Grace murmured to herself, "I hope someone finds what Evelyn really left here." But Miranda was oblivious to those words. To her, the most important thing was turning everything into cash as quickly as possible, not realizing she might be leaving behind her mother's true treasure. The next morning, Miranda returned to the house determined to inspect everything. In her mind, it was simple: make a list of sellable items and contact a real estate agent. Intent on wasting no time, she started in the living room, rummaging through drawers and old boxes. Every item seemed insignificant. None of it held any value for her. Her sole focus was ensuring her visit would be short and profitable. As Miranda worked, Grace appeared again, carrying a vase of roses, Evelyn's favorite flowers. With a heavy heart, Grace walked to the window in the living room, where Evelyn had always loved to place fresh blooms. As she adjusted the vase, she noticed something folded beside the plants. A letter, yellowed with age, as though left there on purpose. Grace picked up the letter, her hands trembling, and began to read. The familiar handwriting of Evelyn filled the page with tenderness. "Dear friend, I know one day someone will come looking for the things I've kept here, but they might not see the true value of this place. The house is full of memories, but only someone who sees beyond the material will understand. If you can see with your heart, you'll find what is truly precious." The note seemed meant for Grace, but she hesitated. She knew the house now belonged to Miranda, and any discovery of value would legally go to her. Still, The message struck a deep chord. It felt as though Evelyn was leaving instructions for someone who truly knew her gestures, her memories, and even their friendship. Miranda, unaware of Grace's presence and the note in her hands, continued sorting through cabinets, discarding what she considered junk and setting aside anything that might fetch a decent price. Grace tucked the letter into her pocket, silently promising herself that she would search for whatever Evelyn had hidden. She sensed that the letter spoke of more than just material things. It spoke of Evelyn's true legacy. The next day, Miranda arrived even earlier, more determined than ever. Her sharp gaze and cold expression showed she was focused, and her resolve was clear. Empty the house of anything sellable and get it ready for the market as soon as possible. She opened cupboards, rifled through drawers, and rummaged through old shoeboxes full of letters, faded silk scarves, and photographs that, to her, were just relics with no value. The heavy, antique furniture seemed even more outdated and useless in her eyes. Who would ever keep this stuff? She muttered aloud, never considering that someone might treasure each detail as a precious memory. Meanwhile, Grace watched from a distance. She had read Evelyn's letter many times, almost as if searching for a hidden clue between the lines. The words echoed in her mind. If you can see with your heart, Grace knew how deeply Evelyn had loved the house and understood those words weren't just sentimental musings. Evelyn had left behind something valuable, something meaningful, meant to be discovered by someone who truly understood her. And Grace felt sure that Evelyn's words held a purpose, reserved for a heart that saw beyond the surface. Miranda, oblivious to Grace's feelings and the emotional weight of the house, continued her search. She moved through the kitchen, where Evelyn used to make desserts for guests, and into the bedroom, carefully rummaging through every corner. As Grace watched, she began to notice a stark difference between them. Miranda searched with greedy eyes, while she herself looked with her heart. Every object, every piece of furniture, and every photograph told a story that Miranda was unwilling to hear. After hours of searching, Miranda grew frustrated. She believed that if her mother had truly left something of value, she would have found it by now. Without any regard for Evelyn's cherished belongings, Miranda decided she would sell everything as it was, packing away her mother's past with no sense of appreciation. Grace, heartbroken, realized that Miranda would never understand the sentimental worth Evelyn had left behind. Eventually, Miranda left the house to handle details of the sale. Seizing the opportunity, Grace wandered back inside, for the first time able to move through the house without haste. She looked around, feeling Evelyn's presence in every room. Then she remembered something. Evelyn always called the fireplace the heart of the home. Grace approached it, examining every inch as if searching for a hidden message. Upon closer inspection, she noticed a small stone that seemed loose. Carefully, she pulled it out and, to her astonishment, found a hidden compartment in the wall. Inside was an old lockbox. Grace's heart raced as she lifted the lid, revealing a set of antique jewelry and some documents detailing investments. It was the material wealth Miranda had been seeking, but Evelyn had left it hidden for someone who would truly understand its value. Grace held the lockbox in her hands, barely able to believe what she had found. Inside that small, secret space, Evelyn had left something of worth, not just monetarily, but sentimentally. The jewelry, delicate and visibly antique, appeared to be family heirlooms, while the investment documents hinted that Evelyn, despite her modest life, had saved a small fortune over the years. Tears welled in Grace's eyes as she sat by the fireplace, clutching the lockbox to her chest. It felt as though Evelyn had entrusted her to discover this treasure, as if she had always intended for Grace, not Miranda, to be the one to inherit this legacy. If you can see with your heart, Evelyn's words now held a deeper meaning. Grace realized that this inheritance was meant for someone who could see beyond material wealth, for someone who truly valued what mattered most. Grace knew that to Miranda, this meant nothing more than money. She made a decision. She would keep the lockbox a secret. She would use this treasure to preserve Evelyn's legacy, ensuring that Miranda would never know. Grace spent that night awake, contemplating the secret she now held in her heart. Sitting beside the fireplace, she clung to the lockbox Evelyn had hidden, as if hoping it would provide her with answers. This discovery was more than just wealth. It was a silent farewell from Evelyn, a final act of trust in the only friend who knew how to see beyond the surface. Taking a deep breath, memories of her conversations with Evelyn flooded back. Evelyn had always believed that true love showed in the way one cared, in the ability to find value in the small things, and no one understood that better than Grace. She felt a deep sense of responsibility to honor what Evelyn had left behind. This treasure represented more than jewelry and investments. It was a testament to a friendship that time and death could never erase. Over the following days, Grace began taking discreet steps to sell the jewelry and retrieve the value of the investments. Each move was made quietly and thoughtfully, as if she knew Evelyn would want it that way. When she finally had the necessary funds, Grace made an anonymous offer on the house, which Miranda, oblivious to its true worth, accepted without hesitation. To Miranda, the house was nothing but an uncomfortable reminder of the past. Once the house was officially hers, Grace set to work. The garden, once faded and neglected, was brought back to life with Evelyn's favorite flowers and plants. Every rose, every growing shrub, every corner she tended to was a loving reminder, proof that Evelyn's legacy would continue to blossom there. Grace planted jasmine, lavender, and dahlias, the flowers Evelyn loved so much. Slowly, the old house transformed into an oasis of beauty and peace. With the remaining resources, Grace made a decision to help those Evelyn had often mentioned in their conversations. Families in town facing hardship, young people in need of educational support, and even the local hospital that Evelyn had supported. She made each donation quietly, never revealing the source, signing only as a friend. Grace knew Evelyn would be delighted by each act that helped the community thrive. When Miranda returned for what she considered her final visit, she was stunned by how much the house had changed in such a short time. The garden bloomed with vibrant colors, and the house, with its renewed appearance, radiated a calm and welcoming energy. Yet Miranda did not linger in admiration. Her mind was set on the money she'd received from selling the remaining furniture. Curious, she asked Grace how the anonymous buyer had managed to acquire the house, but Grace, with a gentle smile, simply said that perhaps the buyer was someone who understood the true worth of such a place. Miranda didn't press the matter. To her, the only thing that mattered was moving on with her life, leaving the past behind. Within days, she returned to New York, unaware of the real significance of everything her mother had left behind. Now alone in the quiet house, Grace allowed herself to cry. They were tears of gratitude and longing. She knew Evelyn had chosen her to safeguard what mattered most: the love for the community, the beauty in small things, and the desire to do good. As Grace looked around, she felt Evelyn's presence in every detail, every flower she had planted, every corner that now reflected Evelyn's generous spirit. In many ways, Grace knew that the house and garden were more than just material possessions. They were a living legacy that she would honor in Evelyn's name. Walking through the blooming garden at sunset, Grace felt a profound peace. She knew she had made the right choice.